have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to the Gay USA End of August special. I'm Andy Hum.
Happy Labor Day. I'm Ann Northrup.
And of course, the big news, when we were on last week, the Democratic Convention wasn't over. And what we saw after that was gay people and rights on full display, although there was no trans speaker.
Or Palestinian speaker.
Well.
But we'll catch up with the end of the Democratic Convention because we believe in complete coverage here at Gay USA. There are 7 out members of Congress currently in the House and the Senate, and we're trying to elect 6 more. So we'll go over some of that. The Victory Fund has a real campaign on to elect more.
Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis got a win from Trump judges, but lost big in school board elections.
Very heartening. And in New Hampshire, a couple of drag queens settled a suit with a state representative who defamed them.
As if things couldn't get any worse in the Mormon Church, they have intensified their discrimination against transgender members. Very cruel.
Well, maybe what's worse is that the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is coming back in mid-September. I don't think the Mormon Church likes that because they're not very friendly to the church, most of them.
How about that housewife who was married to the guy who just got convicted?
Oh, Tom Girardi
yes.
Just got convicted in L.A. Erica Jane vindicated, maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
But here's the great story. The head of the Republican Party in Colorado has been ousted from his job, mostly because he's so anti-LGBTQ. The Republicans have revolted.
The Republican Party. All right. Jack Daniels, Harley Davidson, and Lowe's. If you patronize any of those brands, well, they're the latest to dump their support for LGBTQ inclusion.
And there's another possible one on the horizon. I'll save that for when we do it. Yes, exactly. We will remember fondly the nun who stood up to the Pope in 1979 and a gay photographer who gave us a new way of looking at male sexuality.
You will recognize his images. J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk, we told you about how they were being sued. Well, they're now being investigated for hate crimes in France.
And Bette Bourne, leader of the legendary drag troupe Bloolips, also a member of Hot Peaches and Shakespeare veteran, has died. We'll review that career.
And what has to be our favorite story of the week, although it's a little sad, farewell to a beloved gay penguin in Australia.
Well, there is an aspect to that is amazing.
So did you see any of that Democratic convention?
I saw all of it. Didn't you?
We used to go to them. We used to cover them. We were delegates. Now we're just watching on TV.
Thank heavens, because being a delegate at those things is just a big bunch of nothing.
And you have to wait online for 2 hours just to get beyond the perimeter.
Well, you have nothing to do.
Well, you schmooze and you make connections. I mean,
yes, but that's what it is. It's certainly not having any function as a delegate for many years because all the election parts are predetermined.
Because you do as you're told.
Well, you're elected as a delegate for the person who is predetermined as the nominee, and there may be some discussion about a platform, but as you know, my attitude is they gave up on paying any attention to the platform years ago.
But you did get Bill Clinton to talk about gays and AIDS.
Yes, that was 1992.
You?
Yes, me, with cohorts. But actually,
co-conspirators.
Well, the most interesting. In 96, when I first started doing this show, I was sent to cover the conventions, the Republicans in San Diego, the Democrats in Chicago. And in going to San Diego for the Republicans, I was there for Gay USA. Was also there as a member of ACT UP and demonstrating. I like to wear multiple hats. I like to think that I'm
Go back. Wasn't 96 Atlanta?
No,
All right.
San Diego.
Oh, no. No, all right, go ahead.
96 in San Diego. So the NGLTF, National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, was sort of leading the demonstration effort at the 96 convention in San Diego. And I think it wasn't 92 Houston with Pat Buchanan, or was that earlier? 88 maybe?
It was Bush's second one, so it
That
would have been 92, yes.
Okay, well, San Diego 96. So they tell us, all right, the place where he demonstrated is over here, like half a mile from the convention center. This is what the cops like to say to you. And we said, no. And we went and gathered ourselves right at the front door of the convention center and were demonstrating as the delegates went in and out. And that was all fun and good and gratifying. And that was the first day at the convention. And when we came back the second day, the police had overnight erected like a 10-foot tall chain link fence all around the area outside the front of the convention center and forced us in there. It was very discouraging.
They like to put us in pens.
Yeah, but that was when I went in and had a little chat with Strom Thurmond in my Gay USA role about the wonders of needle exchange. Anyway.
Which he supported, and then he said, "You're a very attractive girl."
No, Dick Armey said I was a very rude young woman.
Yes, he did.
Yes. I said he was a very rude congressman.
All right. So look, the Democratic Convention
Yes.
In Chicago.
Much better run than any of that.
A very smooth affair that injected a lot of optimism in the party and made people want to go out and work and make
For
things
this
happen.
lovely couple who are the Democratic nominees.
That's Vice President Kamala Harris on the left and Governor Tim Walz on the right. They wowed the crowd. They did.
Well, they both gave excellent speeches. And so did her husband, Doug Emhoff. And there were just excellent speeches all along the way.
Very calibrated. And, you know, if you were hoping for socialist revolution, it was aimed at swing voters, the kinds of things that they were talking about and saying. So there wasn't a lot of talk about our stuff in their speeches, for instance. There was some.
If you're looking for something relatively brief but fun to watch, I would, because all of this is on YouTube now. Look up Hakeem Jeffries' speech on, I think, the last night.
He's the Democratic leader in the House.
He is from Brooklyn, and he's gotten so good at these little rap moments, and he was really funny and smart and good.
But there were lots of prominent gay speakers, including Pete Buttigieg, Senator LaFonza Butler of California, Congressman Robert Garcia, also of California, a Human Rights Campaign Fund President Kelly Robinson, AFT President Randy Weingarten.
Maura Healey, the governor of Massachusetts, Tammy Baldwin, the senator from Wisconsin, Jared Polis, the governor from Colorado.
Yes.
I was also impressed
Polis read the anti-LGBTQ plans of Project 2025, which says the only legitimate family is a married mother and father where only the father works. He read this.
Project
and
2025.
This is what they intend to implement, and they're quite open about it.
The only mistake I thought they made there, because they had the big prop book of Project 2025, I thought it should have gotten bigger every night. And I thought Adam Kinzinger, the Republican congressman from California, gave an excellent speech.
But your favorite was the Michigan Attorney General.
Dana Nessel, you know, the women are running Michigan now, the governor, the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, and Dana Nessel, Attorney General.
And not just the women, but they've turned the turned the state around, and Democrats are in control of the legislature. They really did the hard, good work on the ground, which is what you have to do if you want to turn your state around.
So Dana Nessel was an independent lawyer who won a big custody case, a lesbian custody case, I think.
Yeah, but a marriage case.
Yeah, put her
keep the
picture
up.
back up. But she was a very fierce independent lawyer, and she had to fight the major LGBTQ groups to bring that case. They didn't want it.
Sure.
And she won it, and then she got elected Attorney General of Michigan. Who can even believe it? I still can't believe it, and she's been reelected at least once.
Only in America.
So she got up at the convention. She gave a terrific speech, very fierce, and she ended up saying, and I have a message for the Republicans and the Supreme Court. And this is why she's holding up her hand. You can pry this wedding band from my cold, dead, gay hand. Thank you, Charlotte Heston.
Yes, because that's
fantastic.
Because
Thank you, Dana Nessel.
Yeah.
It also came out that, we've heard all these lovely stories of Tim and Gwen Walz sponsoring a gay-straight alliance at the Mankato High School and supporting kids coming out. I heard a news story that when they were still in Nebraska, before they went to Minnesota, they took a gay student to an Indigo Girls concert. Just to be supportive.
And I'm sure that J.D. Vance is going to call him a groomer in the debate.
Absolutely.
Now, Governor Walz sharply denounced Republican attacks on LGBTQ rights in his acceptance speech. He said, growing up in a small town, you learn to take care of each other. That family down the road, they may not think like you do. They may not pray like you do. They may not love like you do. That's us. Mm-hmm. But they're your neighbors, and you look out for them, and they look out for you.
And it seems to not be just rhetoric with him.
No. No, it's the way he lives.
Yeah. Have you seen the latest video of him talking about gutters?
No.
He's doing an interview, maybe a podcast or something. He's sitting around in his Carhartt jacket and his jeans or whatever, and they're talking about gutters. And he says, you can really tell something about people by how clean they keep their gutters. And really, you need these gutter covers.
Yes.
And the guy says to him, you pay a lot of attention to gutters. He says, yes, I do. I look at gutters a lot. It's very cute.
Sometimes they say don't sweat the small stuff, but it's a good idea if you do sometimes.
Yeah.
And then there was our candidate, Vice President Harris, and she did make a brief reference to us, and we have the 13-second clip.
The freedom to live safe from gun violence in our schools, communities, and places of worship. The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride.
What we got. And
We're still the who you loves.
It's all about love.
Well, it is, as our friend Marnie said on this show last week,
Yes.
when we asked her about campaigning as a progressive Democrat.
San Diego City Council member.
Exactly, and daughter of my old high school friend. We asked her how you campaign as a progressive Democrat in a Republican district, which is what she did and has won twice in that district. And she said you campaign with love. And
is that going to work in the debate with Donald Trump and Vice President Harris?
I think Vice President Harris will bring both the love and the outrage. But I will tell you what outraged me the most in a follow-up to the convention. I'm getting very sick of James Carville.
Oh, sure, for forever.
Horrible. Well, he's on, he may have said this on Bill Maher. I think I've seen him say it in several places. The trouble with the Democrats, according to him, is they've become too feminized. Feminized. I wanted to just slap him right through the TV screen.
Oh, God, he won one race in 1992, and he's dined out in it forever.
Terrible.
He's the guy behind Clinton. So there was no trans speaker. That was a lack, and the party is strongly committed to the Equality Act that bans discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity.
I don't think there was much mention of trans issues.
Look, as we are reporting, I mean, this is the issue. I mean, Trump mentions it all the time.
Sure.
And so the question is, we have to find ways to talk about it.
And I appreciated that the vice president in her speech made a very strong statement in the Israel-Gaza context about the horror of what's happening to the people in Gaza. Right. She did not hold back from that. Right. It was, she was a little even-handed, but she did not shy away from including them.
All right, let's talk about the Republicans, shall we?
If we must.
So, Trump took the campaign to a parking garage in Michigan's sheriff's office in the town that was the state headquarters of the KKK. This is not a new strategy for Republicans. Ronald Reagan opened his campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman were killed. And it's all very pointed.
And went to the Bitburg Cemetery in Germany, where the Nazis were buried.
So, anyway, he was endorsed this week by we have a picture of them, the certifiable Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who recently, within the last month, called Trump barely human and probably a sociopath. Probably, you think? Now, Trump, not too long ago, just called RFK Jr. the dumbest member of the Kennedy clan. So these are the two people embracing each other.
Well, this is a country with very short-term memory. Voila.
At least RFK's
family
has said,
yes.
I'm not backing Trump.
Cheryl Hines.
I love you, honey, but I'm not backing him. The rest of the Kennedy family, of course, most of them have condemned him for what he's doing.
I'm sort of amused that RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and a few others have been made co-chairs of the transition team.
Honorary co-chairs.
Yeah, well, the last person with that job was Chris Christie, who, the minute Trump got elected, was...
So how about that J.D. Vance? He's now saying Trump's not going to sign a national abortion ban. Of course, that's a lie.
Total lie.
Of course, you also can't see. All you had to say was Congress isn't going to pass a national abortion ban, which is, as long as you've got the filibuster, likely not to happen. We can only hope that this peels off some abortion hardliners. I suspect anti-abortion activists will sue using the 1873 Comstock Act.
Yes, of course they will.
To stop abortion
Sure.
pills from going through the mail and therefore stop most abortions.
Mifepristone. Well, the thing that is sort of getting under my skin a lot these days is when they keep insisting that they are the party that supports family values and the health and welfare of families in the United States, and the heck with the childless, this is all about families. And then they vote against every piece of legislation, whether it's the Family Medical Leave Act or child care or whatever, child care credits. And I don't think they're called enough on that. Certainly not by the press. No reporter confronts them about this.
J.D. Vance didn't even show up for the Child Credit Act, which he's been,
It didn't matter. It wasn't going to, my vote wasn't going to count.
Well, as you know, the attitude is we're not giving the Democrats a win on anything.
Yeah, but reporters are giving them a win by letting them get away with these statements without doing the simplest, simplest fact check.
The cover of the New York Times today, I got the physical paper still.
Me too.
Re-indictment of Trump is in a little box on the bottom of the page. That should be a banner headline. That the Republican candidate has been indicted again.
Yeah. Instead, we have banner headlines picking at Kamala.
Okay. All right. So Tony Perkins, who's the president of the Family Research Council, said of Trump's stand on abortion, God have mercy on this nation if that is now the position of what was the pro-life party. But Trump says my administration is going to be great for women and reproductive rights, to which Elizabeth Warren said, women are not stupid. Vance, by the way, is disturbed by teachers who without kids, who are trying to brainwash our children. And he specifically went after Randi Weingarten,
who has stepchildren with her wife, Rabbi Sharon Kleinbaum.
He said Randi should have her own kids and leave ours the hell alone.
Will someone please stand up and say, so you're against step-parents, you're against blended families, you're against children coming from any adoption, IVF, anything other than born to the wife of father.
And I would say, in questioning him, if I was one of these reporters who don't ask really good questions, do you want all these people not to vote for you? And of course, then they go, oh, whoa. Although I do remember Scoop Jackson was running back in '76 for president, a conservative Democrat from Washington State.
Yeah.
And he was attacked by the Gay Activist Alliance, and they had it on film, and he goes, I don't want your votes. I don't want your votes.
Oh, that's been said by many.
Okay.
All right.
All right, North Carolina. Nice to see Josh Stein, the Democrat there for governor, pulling ahead against the anti-LGBTQ extremist, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. August polls have him anywhere from 8 to 14 points up. But the presidential race there is a dead heat, as it is in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona.
We're on the way up.
Okay.
It's going to be okay, Andy.
Oh, how about Vance holding a...
Do you want to hold... you were predicting the other day that Trump was going to dump Vance for RFK.
That's still being talked about, and he'll bring RFK on. It'll be
I will be delighted to bet you on that one.
A fusion ticket. I don't think it's really going to happen, but they keep talking. They were talking about it yesterday on the news.
Well, the reason he would do it, Trump would do it, is for a headline.
Yeah, shake things up.
So he can get attention again.
Shake things up.
Yeah.
Vance is holding a fundraiser in Manhattan hosted by a gay couple. Keith Rabois, Rabois, and his husband Jacob Helberg. They were once Buttigieg supporters. Now Rabois supports Florida's Don't Say Gay law. These are capos.
I don't like even giving them that much attention. All right, well, the Victory Fund is paying attention to Congress, as we all should, because really we have to recapture the House and hold on to the Senate, which is looking better and better every day.
The Senate?
Yeah. John Tester is up in Montana.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yes.
I usually check it every day on 538, and he's been like 5 points behind.
He's up now.
2 to 5 points behind.
And Colin Allred is tied with Ted Cruz.
Well, that would be so sweet if
delicious.
Colin Allred could beat Ted Cruz.
And I'm also not giving up on getting rid of Josh Hawley.
Well, I don't even look at that one. But Chuck Schumer said if the
Florida?
Chuck Schumer said this week that if the Democrats run the tables, the 60-vote filibuster would be dropped or at least modified to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. They've been bottled up by Republicans. He doesn't. When he's asked about like the Equality Act and abortion rights nationwide, he says, "Oh, I have to discuss that with my caucus," which is a dodge.
Yeah, of course.
Well, so it all hinges on John Tester and these people that we've talked about.
It definitely hinges.
Let's all move to Montana. Is there time? How many people?
I have a friend there. She's great. Let's go. Yeah, can we register in Montana? Or Texas?
All right.
Or Florida?
But there,
or Missouri?
The
Victory Fund.
Victory Fund. They put up this graphic, and we'll put it up, and we'll talk about it.
It's a little hard to read, but we'll try to go through some of it.
There are 7 out LGBTQ members of Congress at the moment.
There used to be more, but some of them have moved on to become like governor of Colorado.
Right. So we got Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin and House members Becca Ballant of Vermont, Angie Craig of Minnesota, Sharice Davids of Kansas, Chris Pappas of New Hampshire, Earl Sorensen of Illinois, and Richie Torres in New York. That's who's there, and they, of course, everybody's up for re-election. But there are a bunch of candidates. There are 6 more. Well,
let's talk about the incumbents for a second. I was worried about Tammy, but I think Wisconsin.
She's running against a guy from California.
Yes, she is, but he's got a lot of money. But she's looking good. I think she's got a good, solid lead on him. And she's going to be here in a few weeks.
Let's have her on.
I might try to make that happen. Anyway.
Although Phil Donahue, I noticed this week, said, worst guess, politicians.
Absolutely.
Because they have to be careful in what they say.
Very careful, yeah. Anyway.
We don't, but we try to be fair.
I think those incumbents are all good. Mondaire Jones is trying to get back into
Yes.
Congress, and there are a lot of others. What's her name from...
Well, Julie Johnson in Texas, Evan Lowe in California, Sarah McBride, transgender of Delaware, would be the sole representative, Emily Randall of Washington State, and Will Rollins in Palm Springs, California. So go to victoryfund.org if you want to read about all these candidates.
They are the organization that supports LGBTQ candidates across the country in all sorts of races and positions. And if you want to send your money directly to candidates, specific candidates, rather than a more amorphous situation, Victory Fund is where to go.
So it was the 5th National Trans Visibility March there in Washington.
Actually, I think I got that a little wrong. I think it's been 5 years since. I'm confused. Anyway,
they had it this week. They had it this week on
hundreds of people.
Well, 400. So it's not a mass march. It's not a mass action. But they're trying to...
It's significant for trans people to be out in that kind of political context.
They heard from Harvard's first trans student body president, Jay Jones, HRC president Kelly Robinson, of course, and Trans Maryland founder Lee Blinder, among others.
Yeah. And then in Florida, back to our favorite governor, Ron DeSantis.
Well, the federal appeals court let his anti-trans law go into effect 2-1. It bans gender-affirming care for minors, and it restricts it for adults. Now, the dissenting judge, Wilson, said the evidence is that the act was based on animus, on invidious discrimination against transgender people, and would cause needless suffering. The two judges, of course, in the majority were Trump appointees. Judge Wilson, who was a black man, was appointed by Bill Clinton.
The case is ongoing. This is just the latest. The lower court put a block, an injunction on the law going into effect. The appeals court has lifted that injunction and said, while the case continues going up, maybe to the Supreme Court,
now,
it can go into effect.
If you're already in treatment, they're going to let it continue, they said. Oh, but no new treatments for you.
And part of this is that adult trans care has to be by a doctor directly who's in the room, no more like a nurse administering care. It's just cruel and nasty.
Disgraceful.
But
go ahead.
They held primary elections in Florida last week. And in spite of his win in the courts, Ron DeSantis was humiliated at the ballot box. They held school board elections. He had endorsed 23 people for school board seats. 12 of them lost.
Most of them are Moms for Liberty types.
Yes. 5 of them won, and 6 are in runoffs.
And 7 of the 11 that were backed by the Florida Democratic Party won. They have a group called Our Take Back Local program, and that's what you have to do, right down to the school board elections.
Well, the Republicans have just been relentless for decades about focusing on local, lower-level races, and that's how they have seeded all these people into state legislatures and beyond, and we have ignored those races, and we have to pay attention.
But one of his candidates who lost really badly, Daniel Fogan-Holy, was on the Broward County board, but when he lost this race, he was then immediately appointed by DeSantis to the Florida Board of Education, rejected by the voters, propped up by Ron.
Well, on the other hand, in the Fort Lauderdale area, Mitch Rosenwald, the mayor of Oakland Park, won a primary for the State House, for a seat in the State House of Representatives.
And I think that's it for him. I think
there is no Republican candidate in the district, so he has won the seat in the State House. He is the director of doctoral studies at the Barry University School of Social Work, and he is the out mayor of Oakland Park, and yeah, he's going to be in the State House.
And in DeLand, Florida, DELAND, population 45,000, they wanted to change the title fireman to firefighter to reflect women fighting fires. But they had to have the voters. It's in the charter. The word fireman is in the charter. So they had to have a vote. Well, we got 74% yes vote, and 36% said no. It's always a struggle. Thanks to Florida viewer Rich for that story.
And more from Rich, in Orlando, the Pulse nightclub, the cops have been investigating whether the owners of the nightclub were partially responsible for the massacre because of violations in building codes, having entrances blocked, or exits blocked.
There were 23 complaints from survivors and victims' families to the police about this.
The police have decided in the end that those were not precipitating factors in the massacre of 49 people.
No, it was just the shooter. That's it.
Well,
but come on. Other people, obviously, if things had been handled better, could have escaped.
So the complainants say, but
Yes.
we don't.
Well, maybe there'll be lawsuits at this point.
I think that's their next step.
Okay, in New York, Republicans we've been talking about this, Republicans for state legislature are already basing their campaigns on opposing the Equal Rights Amendment, which is on our ballot in New York, which would cover sexual orientation and gender identity as well as reproductive rights, and obviously the category of sex. They're saying it will let trans athletes compete against girls and women born that way. So this is what they're doing in all these local legislative races.
So activists have been trying to get more explicit language put into the referendum proposal, and they've failed. Courts have said no, it's fine the way it is. People will understand it for what it is.
And New Yorkers for Equal Rights, which is backing the amendment, say, look, it doesn't explicitly enshrine trans participation in female sports, which is a controversial issue,
Sure.
which is being adjudicated by sports bodies, and it's evolving.
Yep.
But that's not going to stop the shameless GOP from saying, you're violating our girls.
And speaking of shameless, we may get a return visit to the New York City Council from one of our biggest foes. Fernando Cabrera has filed papers to run again for the City Council in New York. Now, there are term limits on the City Council, so you can only serve a certain amount of time, and then you're off, but then you can come back.
like a bad penny. And he's backed by Mayor Adams, who shamelessly put him gave him a $250,000 job, which he's not in anymore. He belongs to a fundamentalist church. He's the guy who praised the Ugandan leaders for the kill the gays law.
Well, he better watch out, because you can get in trouble even in elected office. In New Hampshire, State Representative David Love has had to admit that he lied about a couple of drag queens.
Yeah, Love had a bill in the legislature to require criminal background checks for library volunteers, and then he gave this speech saying
that these guys were, one of them was a sex offender who had touched kids inappropriately, and they sued him and said, what they said was, we as drag queens, we need to stand up for ourselves. And they won. Robert Champion and Michael McMahon, there they are. They won $100,000 each in the settlement, and an apology from this guy who said, I made it up. That's not true. I'm a liar.
Well, the other thing is they read these things. Some of these guys read these things online. We have to be careful about what we say on this program.
We are sometimes taken to task.
Yes, and you just repeat it, but you got to be careful.
I was taken to task by a viewer the other day for some of my language, and I admit I use some dicey language, and so I have vowed not to repeat it, so I won't repeat it now.
We're not allowed to curse on the show. Free speech TV does not allow it.
Yeah, I wasn't cursing. I'll tell you after we get off the air. Yeah.
All right, trans kids wanting to play team sports had some legal victories this week. In Hanover, Virginia, an 11-year-old girl got an injunction from a federal judge appointed by Obama, Hannah Lauk, forcing the school district to let her try out for the tennis team. The judge cited Title IX and the Equal Protection Clause. And then in New Hampshire,
we told you last week about the trans girl who won the right to play soccer, high school level, I think, in court, and we missed a detail that wasn't reported at the time. It turned out that she went to the court in her soccer uniform, and when the judge gave her the right to play soccer, she went right out of the court to practice.
This must be Parker Tyrrell, 15. She was there suing with Iris Turmiel, I think, 14. Parker said, "Not being allowed to play on my team with the other girls would disconnect me from so many of my friends and make school so much harder."
I'm a big fan of sports in schools.
Okay.
I got a lot out of it.
Yes, what was your game in school?
Field hockey, basketball, softball.
I was only good at bowling.
And a lot of other ancillary things, but those were the main ones.
Okay. All right. Texas. The wicked Attorney General there, Ken Paxton, has seen to it that trans Texans are no longer able to change their gender markers on state IDs, including if they have a court order or an amended birth certificate. So not being able to do this subjects them to harassment and violence, as well as great difficulties accessing services. It will also subject them to involuntary surveillance for trying to update government documents at the Department for Public Safety. And they're now going to be put into a database.
Look, this is not
fascist stuff.
This is not Ken Paxton's only sin, even this week. He sent his stormtroopers.
And we use the word advisedly.
Intelligently, to the homes of Latina activists, political activists, election volunteers, to their homes, to the homes of elder people. And they went in like 7 armed state troopers.
Up against the wall.
6 a.m., give me all your phones, give me your computers, give me every electronic device you have. You have been committing election fraud, and we are going to just rip your life away from you.
Where's
These
the
are
Justice Department?
80-year-old members of LULAC.
Where's the Justice Department when you need them?
Exactly. They went all over and did this to scores of people.
Biden has total immunity now. Why doesn't he move in on this guy?
This is an election fraud investigation. This is an attempt to suppress the Latino vote, and it is
because Colin Allred is gaining in the polls.
Exactly, and it's unbelievable. They have literally declared themselves as an independent state with no responsibility to uphold the Constitution.
They were once an independent state.
And they would like to be again in some ways.
And frankly, we would not mind at this point.
Well, we don't want to desert our friends in Texas.
In Austin, anyway. No, everybody in Texas, of course. I have people in Texas.
There you go. I'm trying to moderate our language so we do not
of
exaggerate
course not.
too much.
Of course not.
Yes. But this is outrageous.
We want to bring everybody along. But you've
Unbelievable.
got to get rid of Ken Paxton.
And Abbott, the governor.
And the lieutenant governor is awful.
Yes.
Awful guy.
All of them. It's shocking that they keep getting elected.
All right. In Oklahoma, we told you that there are Republicans trying to impeach the wicked anti-LGBTQ school superintendent Ryan Walters. Now we're learning that very few school districts are complying with his mandate that the Bible must be taught in every school or you're going to lose your license.
This is, what's the word when you go to court and you rule for a defendant even though he broke the law? When you're...
Nullification.
Thank you. The schools are practicing nullification.
Well, they're just saying, you're telling us we have to do this, you didn't send us any plans, and we have no plans to change our curriculum.
I think it's brilliant. He's becoming irrelevant, and soon he may be impeached. I think that's fantastic.
But in Arkansas, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, appointee to the State Library Board, Christian nationalist, this is not an exaggeration, Jason Rapert, R-A-P-E-R-T, is complaining that the rest of the board won't support his campaign to remove LGBTQ-themed books from schools and libraries. He says these library board members should be tarred and feathered for their resistance to him, and says they're not allowing the nation to be blessed by his God.
I'm telling you, the nation is waking up and is going to get rid of these people because they have gone too far. This is why Mark Robinson is going to lose in North Carolina, the governor's race, because he goes way too far. And people are not going to stand for it anymore.
I have lots of people in Arkansas, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders is their unfortunate governor.
Well,
they didn't vote for her, of course.
The best story comes from one of my former residences, Colorado, where we've told you about this Republican Party chair, Dave Williams, in Colorado, who's been saying things all year like, burn all pride flags.
God hates pride. That's what he said.
Yes, and doesn't he want to...
God hates flags. There you see it on the screen.
Doesn't he want to kill all LGBTQ people or something? That may be an exaggeration. Anyway, the Republican Party of Colorado has nullified him. They have fired him from his job. He is out.
You can't do this to me, he said.
Yes, we can.
And in Texas, they
got rid of the vice chair and the secretary, too.
Now, in Texas, back in June, the Brewatorium in Austin got a bomb threat for hosting a drag brunch, and they had to cancel it. So this week they're not backing down, though. They're hosting a big gay beer event with proceeds going to an organization of veterans advocating for LGBTQ equality. Now, I have to read this. Big Gay Beer is a super strong hazy double IPA fruited to the max with pink guava, orange, and mango, with bright notes of tropical fruit, candied orange peel, and ruby red grapefruit. I'm not a beer drinker. I don't know if that sounds appealing to you, but...
there was a similar story in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, a week or two ago that we just didn't have room for, where there had been a bomb threat at a local bar over a drag show or something, and the bar said, "The hell with you. We're doing this."
Let's stay in the alcohol department and go to Jack Daniels.
Okay. So there's this guy, Robbie Starbucks, who's a right-wing crazy activist.
With a very large following.
Who's been going to corporations, all on his own, by the way, and saying, I'm going to lead a boycott of you if you don't stop supporting LGBTQ people, DEI, rules in your company.
Diversity training, all that stuff.
Reporting to the Human Rights Campaign on your employment practices. So they've all been caving.
He's very successful. So Jack Daniels, the liquor company, they did it.
Harley Davidson, Davidson Motorcycles did it. They got rid of their DEI rules, and Lowe's has done it.
Now, Brown-Forman, which owns Jack Daniels, they had a diversity inclusion page on their website, and it was beautiful, complete with employees in rainbow, T-shirts. They were committed to 40% female senior leaders, 25% people of color, 6% self-identified LGBTQ. This is where they were. You go to the page now, it says, oops, just like our whiskey, this seems to be taking a while to age. So they've eliminated this stuff. How can these people feel that the company has done this? And Lowe's, which was once voted by the Human Rights Campaign the best place to work for LGBTQ equality, and saw an 11% increase in people of color among its top officers. Now they say, we're only going to sponsor events related to safe and affordable housing, disaster relief, and skilled trades, and no more pride.
Well, the sad thing is that historically these boycotts don't work until there was the Bud Light thing about having put the trans influencer on a Bud Light can, a special edition can, and the right-wing Bud Light drinkers went crazy and tanked the stock of Bud Light and the sales. But that, I think, is one of the few boycotts, corporate boycotts that's ever worked, but it has scared now corporations. Next up, I read this morning, maybe Ford Motor Company.
That they're...
getting rid of all their DEI pledges.
And the Mormon Church is getting rid of all its trans people.
Yep.
They have a new anti-trans policy restricting trans members from holding key roles and barring them from working with youth. That's a disgusting thing to say. Only those who do not pursue surgical, medical, or social transition away from their biological sex may enjoy all the privileges of church membership. Whatever happened to we're all God's children?
Trans people cannot receive any rights from the church. They can't be part of the priesthood. They can't be teachers.
Well, if that's what you need to get out of that stupid, am I allowed to say this and show some disrespect for the Mormon Church?
It's Andy saying it, but yes. Well,
Okay.
as I say, I watch The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and they're not respectful to him either. But in 2021 survey of 3,800 members of the Mormon Church, 23% of the young Gen Z members were self-identified as not heterosexual. So there's to you. There's your future, Mormon Church.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about some of the people we lost.
Yes.
All right, photographer Roy Blakey has died at 94 in Minneapolis. He was famous for photos of dance, especially ice skating, but also, there he is with all of his posters there for the Ice Follies, but also for sensual male pictures, supplying covers for magazines. Now that's his very famous photograph of Casey Donovan from back in the day, in the early 70s. He did it for Mandate and Honcho. In 1973, he had a show at the Continental Baths that was reviewed by the New York Times, which wrote, are you ready for this? Militant feminists can now relax because photographers are now exploiting men as well as women by transforming them into sex objects. They transform the young male body into an aesthetic rather than a sexual object. He published Roy Blakey's 70s male nudes with Reed Massengill. He had a show at the Leslie Lohman in 2002. So he was, he really did brilliant work. He sort of raised the bar for these pictures in these magazines.
Professionalized it.
Yes.
Yeah. We also lost Sister Teresa Kane, age 87. She became known when she confronted Pope John Paul II in 1979 and
in D.C. in his visit to the United States.
Yes, and asked for integration of women into positions of leadership in the church.
There was so much gasping in that church. This woman, she was at the time, she was the head of the Leadership Conference of Women Religious, and she gets up and, well, we're going to show you what she said.
Yes.
That the church, in its struggle to be faithful to its call for reverence and dignity for all persons, must respond by providing the possibility of women as persons being included in all ministries of our church.
All ministries. A nun was urgently requesting the Pope to allow women into the priesthood.
He was fit to be tied, sitting there.
Of course.
The tension in his actions when how dare you, a woman, speak like that to me? Don't you know I'm infallible? Now, this was a room full of 5,000 nuns at the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington. So,
Thus the applause.
But of course, in all this time, the church hasn't budged on women's ordination.
That was 45 years ago.
Now, in 1982, shortly after that, and she's controversial at this point, but she's a great woman and worked in peace and all these other kinds of causes, she gave the keynote at the first conference of Catholic lesbians.
Good for her.
Yes.
All right.
She was a hero.
On a less edifying note, there's a news story of corruption in our community,
yes.
Also in D.C. Brandon Anderson, who is a founder of a nonprofit app known as Rahim AI. Mm-hmm. He's 39 years old. It turns out he is accused of stealing $250,000 from the organization for his own clothes and housing
But here's
and
the
trips.
thing. He based this thing on, I'm a guy who fell in love with my boyfriend when I was like 15, and he asked me to marry him, and I was so happy. And then when I was away in Iraq fighting, he was killed by the police in, where was it? Oklahoma. There's no record of this guy being killed, of any Rahim being killed by the police. It was all made up.
So this organization, this nonprofit, had as its mission defund the police, get rid of the police.
And also, if you have a problem with the police, we're going to have an app, or you can just call, and we're going to connect you, and we're going to get a complaint done. And they never did it.
But the people who were connected to the organization, when they realized that he was a crook, then were left with the question, do we call the police? And they finally did, because he clearly had done something very wrong.
Tell us about Alan Young.
Well, Alan Young is a very early gay activist and author of many important books, especially with Carla Jay, our pal. We've known Alan for many years, and Carla. The Gay Report, Out of the Closets, Voices of Gay Liberation, Lavender Culture.
This is early 70s.
Yeah, journalist, activist, great guy. And he was originally from Woodridge, New York. And Woodridge, New York has erected an historical marker there in the town called the Borscht Belt Historic Marker, because it's in the Catskills area, I guess, and it includes mention of Alan Young as a gay activist and author. And there he is visiting the historic marker, and I think that's pretty cool to have yourself on a historic marker there.
Especially if it's about the
Borscht
Borscht Belt, because we're into integration. We're trying to integrate into society.
Exactly. So congratulations, Alan. That's a great triumph.
All right, international?
No, Bette Bourne.
Well,
unless
that's international.
The segue to international.
Yes. Bette Bourne was the founder of the legendary British drag troupe Bloolips. Has died at the age of 84. Also an actor and activist. Started with the New York-based gay cabaret troupe Hot Peaches in the mid-70s. Put his early acting career on hold in the 70s to work in the Gay Liberation Front in London. Lived in a gay commune in Notting Hill. Started wearing drag, changed name from Peter to Betty, said dressing up was fun, even if it scared some of the other activists. Then founded Bloolips in London after Hot Peaches. Inspiration came from the story of the ugly duckling. The group, Bloolips, combined political comedy, tap dancing, singing with men in clown-like costumes rather than female attire. It was kind of drew on panto and Hollywood glamour and Broadway. They tried to look as if they were down on their heels when they were doing it. It was quite hilarious. I got to see them back in the, I guess, early 80s maybe, or maybe it was the late 70s. The New York Times loved their show, Lust in Space, and Get Her, H-U-R, played on Ben-Hur. But, went on to more acting, played Quentin Crisp in the film Resident Alien.
And did Shakespeare.
Yes.
And worked with Lois Weaver and Peggy Shaw of Split Britches, and just had, as you said, played Quentin Crisp, but worked with the Royal Shakespeare Company, did theater with Ian McKellen, and won many, many, many awards. Very legendary.
I did see him in Shakespeare, but he did so many, I'm not remembering which one.
Sometimes her, not just he.
And his friend, playwright Neil Bartlett, said, "Be proud as one of the great ones passes."
Yeah. All right, other international news.
Yep.
In Australia, we mourn the death of the penguin Sven. Sven was, there on the right in the front of the picture, was famously partnered with Magic, his male penguin partner. They raised a chick together, a chick whose egg had been rejected by another penguin. So they were given the egg, and they hatched it and raised the chick together at the Sea Life Sydney Aquarium.
They had a 6-year relationship, and they only had eyes for each other.
And when Sven died, the zoo people took Sven's body to show Magic that Sven had died.
Yes.
And Magic started singing.
Yes.
and all the other penguins started singing. I've been searching high and low for that video. I have not found it.
Must have been a very moving scene.
Very.
Originally they were given a fake egg to try them out, and they were very good with that. Then they gave them a real egg, and then they hatched 2 chicks over the years, Lara and Clancy.
Yeah.
Well,
the first one was originally named Svennik, to be both Sven and magic, but then they changed the name. But very famous couple.
All right, so that was a sweet story.
Yeah.
And of course, then there's also the flamingos, right?
Yes.
Same-sex flamingos hatched an egg in
the UK.
Devon.
Painter Zoo.
Yeah. So,
Arthur and Curtis have hatched an egg and raised a chick at the...
this isn't perversion, it's nature.
Yes, exactly. Well, we keep trying to make
We said last
point.
week that the women's gold medalist in boxing, Algerian boxer Imani Khelif, had filed lawsuits against Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling for harassment due to gender, public insult because of gender, public incitement to discrimination, and public insult because of origin. These things are taken seriously under French law and are now being handled by the country's National Center for the Fight Against Online Hatred and the Central Office for the Fight Against Crimes Against Humanity and Hate Crimes.
Nice.
Formidable. So her lawyer said Donald Trump could be targeted by the investigation as well. They could all face trial and 2 years in prison and stiff fines.
Stay out of France, Donald. And in Australia, a trans woman, Roxanne Tickle, has been awarded $10,000 and court costs by an Australian court. She was barred from a women-only social media platform called Giggle for Girls, and she won this case on the basis of sex discrimination.
In the United Kingdom, the NHS has announced a Hillary Cass-like review of adult gender clinics now, having purged them for youth. This will be run by somebody named Dr. David Levy, who has no special expertise in the field. It's all being done by politics, and I hate to see the Labour government with the NHS allowing this to happen.
But I'm happy to see that trans youth, angry about all of this for them and the adults, are camped outside, or have been for the last few days, at the Department of Education in London. They are protesting the fact that the Department of Education has banned education in the schools about gender identity.
Oh, for God's sakes.
They're demanding inclusive sex education, correct names and pronouns being used for them, respect, safety, no mandatory outing to their parents, and self-determination.
Well, it's very sad to see the new Labour government running away from this issue.
But we'll end on a lighter note. The Paralympics have now started in Paris, and there are out LGBTQ contestants. So far, Out Sports is counting 38 of them, mostly in basketball and rowing. And Barbara Butch, who got in trouble at the opening ceremonies of the other Olympics, carried the torch for the opening of the Paralympics.
And we're down to our last 30 seconds, and Mpox is really something to worry about. It's spreading around the world now, slowly, but it's mostly in Africa. And get your 2 doses, because this one can be lethal.
I went in on a nicer note.
And the nicer note would be if the vaccine producer would give the 10 million doses they need in Africa to stop it.
Yes, we'll be back next week. Bye.